Good morning, first grade, and welcome back to Bible. Today's story is entitled Esther Saves Her People. And today we're going to talk about Esther's faith and courage in going before the king is an example for all of us. And our memory verse today comes from Esther chapter 4, verse 16. I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I die, I die. A murmur ran through the people, and they all fell on their knees and put their faces on the ground as Prince Haman walked by, all except Mordecai. After Haman had passed, the other men turned to Mordecai. Why do you keep on disobeying the king's command? I am a Jew, Mordecai said. I worship only the God of heaven. Haman went to the king and said, Did you know that there is a whole race of people in your empire who don't obey you? And they don't obey your laws? It would be in your best interest to kill all of them. Xerxes frowned, and said, Go take care of these people any way you like. Write the order in my name and seal it with my ring. Even the king could not change an order sealed with his ring. An order was given. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, all the Jews were to be killed. One of Esther's servants said, Your Majesty, something is wrong with your cousin Mordecai. He is in sackcloth and ashes outside the gate of the palace, mourning and wailing. Esther jumped up. Mourning and wailing? Has someone died? Go and see what is the matter. When they returned, he had an order. Your Majesty, your cousin said this decree has been issued throughout all the empire and that it was Prince Haman's idea. Esther looked at the decree. Her face turned white. All the Jews to be destroyed? How could this happen? Mordecai wants you to go before the king and ask him to put a stop to this. Esther prepared a message to send back to Mordecai. No man or woman may ever go to the king in the inner courtyard without being called. Anyone who enters must be put to death. But if the king holds out his golden scepter, then that person may live. And I have not been called to go to the king for 30 days. And Esther's message was given to Mordecai. Then Mordecai sent back a message to Esther. Just because you live in the king's palace, don't think that out of all the Jews, you alone will escape. You might keep quiet at this time, then someone else will help and save the Jews. And who knows, you may have been chosen for queen for such a time as this. Then Esther sent an answer back to Mordecai. Go and get all the Jews in Susa together. For my sake, give up eating. Do not eat or drink for 3 days and 3 nights. And I and my servant girls will also give up eating. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I die, I die. So Mordecai went away. He did everything Esther told him to do. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. Then she stood in the inner courtyard of the king's palace, facing the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the doorway. The king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard. When he saw her, he was very pleased. He held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther went up to him and touched the end of the scepter. Then the king asked, What is it, Queen Esther? What do you want to ask me? I will give you as much as half of my kingdom. Esther answered, My king, if it pleases you, come today with Haman to a banquet. I have prepared it for him. Then the king said, Bring Haman quickly so we may do what Esther asks. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared for them. As they were drinking, the king said to Esther, Now, Esther, what were you asking for? I will give it to you. What is it that you want? I will give you as much as half of my kingdom. Esther answered, This is what I want to ask for. My king, I hope you are pleased with me. If it pleases you, give me what I ask for and do what I want. Come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will answer your question about what I want. Haman left the king's palace that day, happy and content. Then he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and he saw that Mordecai did not stand up, nor did he tremble with fear before him. So Haman became very angry with Mordecai, but he controlled his anger and went home. When Haman went home, he told his wife and friends how the king had honored him. He told them that he was the only one beside the king to go to the queen's banquet, and he was so happy to be going again tomorrow. But Haman could not be happy as long as he saw Mordecai sitting at the king's gate. Then Haman's wife Zeresh and all the friends said, Have a platform built to hang someone. Build it 75 feet high, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Haman liked this suggestion, so he ordered the platform to be built. That same night the king could not sleep, So he gave an order for the daily court record to be brought and to be read to him. And it was found recorded that Mordecai had warned the king about 2 men who planned to kill the king. Then the king said, what honor and reward have been given to Mordecai for this? The king's personal servants answered, nothing has been done for Mordecai. The king said, who is in the courtyard? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace. He had come to ask the king about hanging Mordecai on the platform he had prepared. The king's personal servant said, Haman is standing in the courtyard. So the king said, bring him in. So Haman came in, and the king asked him, what should be done for a man that the king wants very much to honor? And Haman thought to himself, whom would the king want to honor more than me? So he answered the king, this is what you could do for the man who wants very much to receive this honor. Have the servants bring a royal robe that the king himself has worn, and also bring a horse with a royal crown on his head. The horse should be one of the king himself has ridden. Then let the robe and the horse be given to the one of the king's most important men. Let the servants put the robe on the man and the king wants very much to honor, and let them lead him on the horse through the city streets. As they are leading him, let them announce, this is what is done for the man the king wants very much to honor. The king commanded Haman, go quickly, take the robe and the horse, just as you have said, Haman, and do all this for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not leave out anything that you have suggested. Haman did as the king commanded. Then Mordecai went back to the king's gate. But Haman hurried home with his head covered. He was embarrassed and ashamed. He told his wife Zeresh and all of his friends everything that had happened. The king sent Haman and went with them to eat with Queen Esther. And the king said to Esther on the second day, what are you asking for, my queen? I will give it to you. What is it that you want? I will give you as much as half of my kingdom. Then Queen answered, my king, I hope you are pleased with me. If it pleases you, let me live. This is what I ask. And let my people live too. This is what I want. I ask that because my people and I have been sold to be destroyed, we are to be killed and completely wiped out. Then King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he? Who has done such a thing? Esther said, a man who is against us. Our enemy is this wicked Haman. Xerxes stared at Haman. Haman stared back. Then the king turned to Esther. You are a Jew? Esther trembled. Would she die right there? Yes, your majesty, she said. This was the end of Haman's plot. He was hanged on the gallows he had built to hang Mordecai. The king let Mordecai write a new decree and seal it with his ring, allowing the Jews to protect themselves. That day became a day of joy that the Jewish people still celebrate. Mordecai became the high man in the king's government instead of Haman. The family of Abraham, instead of being destroyed, was stronger than ever, all because Esther said, I will go to the king, and if I die, I die. So our memory verse today is found in Esther chapter 4, verse 16. I will go to the king, even if it is against the law, and if I die, I die.